We're trying to figure out, did he do any more? I don't know if he did any more. I don't know who my father is, what he was hiding.
If you're a true crime enthusiast, Netflix has come with yet another treat for you. The new crime documentary about one of America's most notorious serial killers of the 20th century, known as the BTK Killer, is so intriguing that it made me look back at the official records and theories around the killer, Dennis Rader. Best known as the BTK Killer, or BTK Strangler, Dennis killed at least 10 people in Wichita and Park City, Kansas, between 1974 and 1971. However, speculation suggests that his kill count might actually be higher, which prompted me to create this video, where I look into some of the unsolved murder cases linked to the BTK Killer that are not officially confirmed. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK.
The Oklahoma laundromat mystery, Cynthia Dawn Kinney. Let's start with perhaps the most compelling case that has investigators convinced there are more victims out there. In June 1976, 16-year-old Cynthia Dawn Kinney disappeared from a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and her case has recently been thrust back into the spotlight with some absolutely chilling connections to Dennis Rader. Cynthia was working part-time at the Osage laundromat when she vanished without a trace. What makes this case particularly haunting is what investigators found left behind. A purse, a drink, and a half-eaten donut on the counter, suggesting she left in a hurry. The 16-year-old cheerleader was last seen getting into a 1965 faded beige Plymouth with 2 women, and then she simply vanished from the face of the earth. Now, here's where it gets really disturbing. In 2022, Sheriff Eddie Verdon was watching a Netflix true crime documentary when something clicked. He noticed similarities between Cynthia's disappearance and BTK's known methods, which led him to make a prison visit to Dennis Rader himself. During their 3-hour interview, Rader made a statement that sent chills down the sheriff's spine. When asked about his fantasies, he said, "I always wanted to kidnap a girl from a laundromat." But wait, it gets even more disturbing. Investigators discovered that Rader had written a journal entry titled Bad Wash Day, around the time of Cynthia's disappearance in 1976. In his unpublished manuscript, which documented what he called his successful projects, he referenced watching laundromats as good places to find victims. Even more chilling, on the same page, he wrote, "Out of town until things cool down," suggesting he may have left his Park City, Kansas home during that exact time frame. The connections don't stop there. A word puzzle that Rader sent to the media in 2004 contained the names Cindy, Kinney, Laundromat, and Kiheka, the actual name of the street where the laundromat was located. Across the street from that laundromat was a bank that had an ADT security system installed shortly before Kinney's disappearance, and evidence suggests Rader, who worked for ADT at the time, may have installed that very system. In August 2023, investigators searched Rader's former property in Park City, Kansas, and found what they called items of interest, including trophies from at least one female victim and bondage materials hidden in a concealed space. They believe Cynthia's body may be buried in a barn near the Kansas-Oklahoma border, based on Rader's drawings and anonymous communications from prison. Mary Lang's 1983 disappearance, Hays, Kansas. Next is a case that some investigators briefly orbited because of Rader's jargon and a possible clothing length. Mary Lang, age 31, disappeared from downtown Hays, Kansas on October 21, 1983. She had just started a job as a legal secretary and was running documents around town when she vanished. Her car was found with the door ajar. Her purse and legal papers were inside. 5 days later, her coat was located under a rural bridge north of town. Her car keys were tucked neatly in a pocket. No body has ever been found. Her case remains a missing but presumed homicide in the public's mind. So where does BTK enter? In 2023, during renewed digging into the Kinney case, Osage County Sheriff publicly floated possibilities between Rader and other cold cases. 2 phrases turned heads. One was PJ Prairie, a project-style label in BTK's notes that some observers wondered might echo a Kansas Plains setting. The other was a mention in Rader's writings of a woman's coat. Reporting at the time highlighted that Mary Lang's brown fur-style coat was found folded with her keys, and investigators speculated whether that could intersect with Rader's fetishistic trophy behavior. These are precisely the kinds of details that keep detectives from letting go. But here's the essential reality check. Kansas authorities push back. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the Ellis County Sheriff's Office stated they had no evidence linking Rader to Mary Lang's disappearance. In other words, while an out-of-state investigation briefly raised the BTK flag on this case, the agencies responsible for Mary Lang's investigation say the BTK connection isn't there, at least not with the evidence they have today. Mary's case remains unsolved, But officially, BTK is not regarded as a suspect in her disappearance. That leaves us with a case that feels like BTK in some ways. Weekday timing, neat staging, potential garment fixation, but currently sits on the contested link shelf. An unnamed Kansas homicide lurking in BTK's notes. The next one is frustrating because it's more fog than form. In 2023, coverage of the renewed BTK inquiries, multiple outlets reported that investigators were also looking at an unsolved murder in Kansas, referenced in Rader's writings as Project Bell. No official victim identity has been publicly attached to that project label, and agencies haven't announced a corresponding case by that name. So what can we responsibly say here? Project Bell appears in BTK's project lexicon, similar to other nicknames he used to organize fantasies and real crimes. Media reports place it on law enforcement's internal list of leads to explore, alongside the Kinney case and other items for the same review. But without a named victim, location, or date, there's no way to evaluate fit, method, or timeline beyond the obvious: Kansas, and likely the 1970s to 1980s BTK activity window. The barn drawings. Unmatched scenes that might belong to unknown victims. One of the most unsettling developments in the recent BTK reviews came when investigators released several of Rader's colored drawings. They depict bound, gagged women, posed in what look like barns or tack rooms, wood slat walls, posts, a silo nearby. Investigators explicitly asked the public to study the details, the type of barn wood, the layout, the proximity to a silo, in hopes someone would recognize a location in Kansas, Oklahoma, or Missouri. In the days after released, reports said one subject might have been tentatively identified, but nothing public tied a specific named victim or crime scene to a drawing in a way that produced charges. The Missouri Mystery, Shauna Beth Garber. The other major case that had investigators convinced of BTK's involvement was the murder of 22-year-old Shauna Beth Garber, whose body was discovered in December 1990 in McDonald County, Missouri. For over 3 decades, this case remained one of the most puzzling cold cases in the region, with investigators initially considering both Dennis Rader and another serial killer, Larry Hall, as potential suspects. What made this case potentially compelling as a potential BTK victim was the method of murder. Shauna had been raped, strangled, and restrained with different bindings, a signature that seemed to match Rader's known methodology. Her body wasn't found until 2 months after her death, discovered at an abandoned farmhouse, and she remained unidentified as Grace Doe for over 30 years until DNA technology finally revealed her identity in 2021. The timing also seemed significant. Records showed that Rader was working in the same area around the time of Shauna's disappearance in 1990, when he was employed as a regional supervisor for state and federal censuses. Investigators even found Polaroid photographs in Rader's journal that contained items believed to belong to Shauna, including a red blanket that matched one reported missing when she disappeared. However, in a dramatic turn of events in March 2024, this case was finally solved, and it wasn't Dennis Rader. After years of investigation, McDonald County detectives identified Talfie Reeves as the actual perpetrator. Through witness statements and testimony from 6 different sources, investigators determined that on Halloween night, 1990, Reeves picked up Shauna from Highway 59, hogtied her, took her to an abandoned farmhouse, sexually assaulted her, and overdosed her with drugs to stop her screaming. Reeves died in November 2021, effectively closing the case. While this case ultimately proved not to be connected to BTK, it demonstrates how his methods and geographical range made him a viable suspect in multiple unsolved cases across several states. The expanding investigation, a national task force. In September 2023, Sheriff Verdon announced the formation of a national BTK task force, comprised of investigative experts, law enforcement, and prosecuting agencies from multiple states. This task force includes the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Oklahoma and the Kansas Department of Corrections, which oversees Rader's incarceration. The investigation has expanded far beyond just the 2 cases I've mentioned. Authorities are examining hundreds of Rader's drawings and writings that were recovered after his 2005 arrest. These materials include detailed colored sketches of barns featuring what appear to be victims, leading investigators to believe these drawings could represent other crimes committed by Rader. Sheriff Verdon has stated that when he compares these drawings to actual crime scene photos from known BTK murders, the similarities are uncanny. Even more disturbing, investigators are currently verifying claims from 5 individuals who have recently come forward claiming to be surviving victims of Rader, with 2 of them from Oklahoma. The sheriff's office reports they're receiving very good tips from the public regarding additional potential victims. The geographical web of terror. One of the most chilling aspects of this investigation is how it reveals the potential geographical scope of Rader's crimes. We know his confirmed victims were primarily in Wichita, Kansas area, but the investigation into additional victims spans across Oklahoma, Missouri, and potentially other states. Rader's work history provided him with the perfect cover for expanded hunting grounds. His job with ADT security systems allowed him to case homes while installing security systems, giving him intimate knowledge of his victims' routines and home layouts. Later, his work as a regional supervisor for state and federal censuses put him in various locations across multiple states, providing opportunities that investigators are still piecing together. The psychology of a hidden monster. What makes the possibility of additional victims so terrifying is understanding Rader's psychology. This was a man who lived a double life so completely that even his own family had no idea of his true nature. He was a church council president, a Boy Scout leader, a husband, and a father, all while harboring the darkest fantasies imaginable. Rader's own daughter, Carrie Rawson, has publicly stated that she believes her father probably committed more than 10 murders. She's even assisted in the investigation, visiting locations with investigators and recalling childhood experiences that might hold significance. In 2023, she visited her father in prison for the first time in 18 years, trying to extract information, but reported that he was lying to her even during their emotional reunion. The challenge of proving additional cases. Despite the compelling circumstantial evidence in cases like Cynthia Kinney's disappearance, prosecutors face significant challenges in bringing additional charges against Rader. In October 2023, Oklahoma District Attorney Mike Fisher announced that there wasn't enough evidence to charge Rader in Kinney's disappearance, despite statements from law enforcement calling him a prime suspect. This highlights the frustrating reality of cold case investigations. Circumstantial evidence and behavioral patterns, no matter how compelling, may not meet the legal standards for prosecution. The passage of time has destroyed potential physical evidence. Witnesses have died or their memories have faded, and proving cases from nearly 50 years ago becomes exponentially more difficult. The technology factor. What's given investigators new hope is the advancement in DNA technology and forensic analysis. The same technological breakthroughs that finally identified Shauna Garber after 30 years as Grace Doe could potentially link Rader to other unsolved cases. Authorities are working with federal agencies to analyze evidence that may still contain DNA, including the trophies discovered during searches of Rader's former properties. The terrifying pattern. Looking at the potential additional cases, what emerges is a terrifying pattern that suggests Rader's methodology may have been even more refined and extensive than originally believed. The laundromat connection in Cynthia Kinney's case shows a level of fantasy fulfillment that indicates premeditation and specific targeting. The horrors of the BTK Killer could be more than we know. As of 2024, the investigation into Dennis Rader's potential additional victims remains active, though prosecutors acknowledge the challenges in bringing new charges. The 78-year-old killer remains imprisoned in Kansas, serving 10 consecutive life sentences, and according to his daughter, he's rotting to his core in his wheelchair. What we're left with is a disturbing question that may never be fully answered. The confirmed count stands at 10, but the evidence suggests this number could be significantly higher. The geographical spread of potential cases, the timeline spanning decades, and Rader's own psychological profile all point to the possibility that one of America's most notorious serial killers may have been even more prolific than we ever imagined.